not social. Yeah, it works. Want to share?
Hello, Portland. How many of you guys like First Amendment? The freedom of speech? Anybody? Right on. How about the liberty of conscience? That's the more appropriate word for freedom of religion that I've learned. And we're out here today supporting justice for Qadira. And for the first time in how many weeks? We're about 2.5 years consistently every week, every Friday here for about an hour. And that's changed a couple times on the time, but it's always been consistent. And it's a peaceful protest. I'm trying to get support for my niece, who has been left with lifelong injuries from being burned by a politician's relative while having a overnight stay to play with a cat. Her parents, my sister and brother-in-law, were told. But instead they played a naked game in the bathtub suggested by the parents of her friend. And they used what could not really be called wisdom to boil up an entire kettle full of water and took it into a dangerous bathroom where kids were playing and standing on the edge of the bathtub. I'm going to wait for the train to go by. Oh, okay. We're actually going to begin by invoking our right to speak and our freedom of conscience, liberty of conscience, to throw up a prayer to our Father in heaven and ask Him to bless everybody out here today and to consider everybody out here today. Absolutely everybody, down to a man, woman, and child, every single individual coordinate person, and to come to each of them as if they were his only child. So we lift that up, Father, and we know that you do so because you would know before we asked what we would request. And also there is no getting away from you because there is nowhere to go from your presence. Heidi, would you like to say something?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Portland. My name's Heidi Kordowski. This peaceful protest is dear to my heart. I'm a victim as well as a child, but that's a different story for a different day. So I've got a lot of compassion towards this situation. Unfortunately, the two that usually come down here and do the rally aren't able to because the powers to be decided to go and give them an indictment with 19 different charges, citing that they were recklessly endangering the public by having these rallies that are peaceful, despite the fact that there's been numerous other groups that have come down to downtown Portland and created havoc and burned the city down, and they never got cited. So this is obviously harassment. I too invoke my rights, all my amendments, and freedom of speech, freedom of religion. I ask God to come down here and open the hearts and ears of this city and heal the obvious problems that it's having from within. It's funny because in the Bible it says that the last war will be a war from within, and it's obvious that this is just another measure of what's going on the spiritual side of the war. We can't see it, but it's obviously a spiritual war that we can't detect. But it says to know the signs, don't fear them. So Renee and Carillon can't be down here for a month or so until they get this all cleared up with the courts. So we're going to be down here every week like they were to hold their spot. And I invite anybody to try to give me a ticket. It's cool. I'm sure that my family would have a heyday with that. And good luck. So here you go.
Okay, so we want to lift up my sister and brother-in-law and wish them well on their legal situation with this, because it's basically harassment, and it's very clear that it's harassment. So they do send their love, and they love all the people down here. They really do. And that's why they consistently come despite no outcome from, if any of you are getting a hold of your politicians like we request, to let them know. Still nothing's been done but continued harassment of distressed parents of a lethally burned child that was miraculously saved by God, because the doctors that night when my sister went and got her child from that home where she was taken with a lethal injury, a burn from scalding hot water poured on her leg, to their basement, naked, to be wrapped in a towel, and to cry and pray, I'm sure, to get some help. But they refused to help her, and they discouraged my sister from taking her to the hospital when she came and got her. Then when they got to the hospital, because this gentleman is the relative of a powerful politician who brings a lot of money into the state, and who's friends with the president of Providence, I believe, was discovered. He was obviously able to make a couple phone calls, or just one, we suppose, and have her turned away. So she came in with third-degree burns on 10 to 20% of her body. That was diagnosed. And then they proceeded to, instead of treating her, not even giving her ID, not stop the burning with the cooling method, not send her urgent stat to the Oregon Burn Center, like multiple criteria on the American Burn Association requires a doctor to do, because even ER rooms are not sufficiently capable of taking care of a burn, the most serious injury a human body can sustain. Nayer the lays. Instead, in 17 minutes, they were carrying their daughter back out because they didn't even offer them a wheelchair. And I don't know about you, but I've never even gone to the ER for some kind of vicious cold or something that I wanted to get checked out and leave the ER room in 17 minutes. But that's what happened, and not before they were prescribed by the doctor who refused to treat her and send her for life-saving care, told them to commit medieval torture to their daughter for the next 3 to 6 weeks, something like 3 to 6 times a day, for 45 minutes to an hour. Changing bandages, which needed to be debrided, and all this stuff that a wound care at a specialty wound care burn center would be doing. But instead, they traumatized and abused my sister and her husband and their daughter and the rest of their children as they all watched and heard in horror as this happened every day. And of course, they took her back in the next day from the night they took her in, distressed and concerned that they weren't doing it right and that she really needed care. But trusting authority is something we've become acclimated to do, quote unquote authority. But you see, money has a way of making people make some lousy decisions and makes people have a tendency to worship money. There are money worshipers, as my sister brings up quite frequently, and they're not like upper middle class types of people that most of us think have a little bit of money. They're the people, buying up whole islands and all this kind of stuff and slaving, people and children all over the world, wherever they can find a government to sell their people down the river like that. And unfortunately, there's nations across the border that will do that. And there's business people in our country that are quite willing to do that, to merchandise human lives like that. So there is a human trafficking problem. Our government, our government, this is a ground zero of that. There is, a massive I-5 corridor human trafficking trade that everybody hears about all the time, but we don't ever hear of any major busts in this thing. We don't hear about it except on the street, Go ahead. We also, my sister's done a lot of research. She also found out, in addition to being one of the human trafficking capitals of the world, we are the sex offender capital of United States. We have the highest per capita of sex offenders, and yet we have the lowest reporting of registering these people that any of the states in the western region have. The next lowest one is Washington, I believe, at 40% that of these people that they require to register. Idaho is really good. They're at 90%. California, as massive as it is, I think years ago it was the third largest economy in the world, not accepting nations. But with all those metropolises and big cities, it's good that they do 75%. But Portland, Oregon is the lowest. they do like 1%. I think it was 1 to 3%, and apparently the legislating body complained that there was something they needed to update or something. This was like years ago. I read, and they gave them the ability to upgrade it. They funded it or whatever, and then it's been like 12 years since that, and they just didn't do anything. So this seems to be like a safe haven for human trafficking and sexual predation. And it's troubling. It's really quite astonishing. I'm going to let Heidi speak on this.
Yeah, me being a woman from Portland, Oregon, it's not a safe place to let women walk around anymore. The homeless population down here are the prime candidates for the victims, and unfortunately, the upper people goat rope other homeless people into being their ground people to get the homeless women roped in. And, you know, you would think that you would hear of people coming back as a survivor, you know, somehow escaping. But what the unfortunate part of this all is they use them in multiple ways, and then they unfortunately sell them for their organs. And that's why you don't hear of a bunch of people escaping and coming back, is because they're used up sexually and then they get harvested for their organs. And that's a sad truth. It sounds really morbid, but that's what our politicians are into. So it's a sick thing. That's the truth of it. And if you try to speak out about stuff like this, you're labeled as crazy. So, you know, I've always carried that label well because I got a voice, and I'm not afraid to use it. So I'm always crazy. And unfortunately, now these two parents of this little girl in this picture right here that I know personally are being victimized by the powers to be for speaking out about something that was supposed to go a way different way one dark night 16 years ago. And me being a survivor, I know that it doesn't matter how much time goes by. If the pain isn't dealt with, it's there. And everybody can say, you know, it's been this amount of time, but it doesn't go away. It festers. And thankfully, we have Renee and Carillon to come down here and do positive work, trying to show people how they can, you know, do something positive with that horrible energy that's built up whenever you are victimized. You have other outlets, and they've taught me a lot watching them. And unfortunately, now they're in trouble for having a peaceful protest. The indictment says they were having a reckless, and they were recklessly endangering people by coming down here. I would welcome anybody, any officer, any government official, anybody that has an education that should know the laws to show me how they've been dangerously and, you know, recklessly doing anything to anybody. They simply are trying to get their voice out in a peaceful way. And people don't understand all these bad things that are happening in the world today is because people don't know how to cope with the stuff that's happened, and so much happens and is silenced. There's so many victims sitting in silence, suffering alone, and they don't have a way to cope with it. And that's where you get all these mass shootings, and it's people that are fed up to the point of, you know, either, and counseling is only going to do so much. You know, the pain that is deep-seated like this is, it needs an outlet that is helping something. And if they're coming out here and talking for an hour once a week, shame on people who don't allow that. That's therapy for them, and they have a lot of good stuff to say. I pray for those people who judge them and look down on them, not knowing how it is. And I would hate for the people that haven't been victimized or suffered that kind of trauma. You know, I'm glad they haven't. And I just wish that people who were educated and smart learned how to be human too, because it's not just education that's going to pull us out of this spiral into hell. It's human love and compassion for one another. When you see a homeless person on the street and you make them feel worse about themselves, it's going to only make the situation worse, because you are making them not a part of society anymore. And when you're not a part of society, you act differently, and then people judge you for acting differently, and it snowballs. You know, if you see somebody on the side of the road, don't scowl at them, smile, or offer them a job, because if they had self-worth, they may be able to pull themselves out of the spiral they're in. I mean, shame on people who go around thinking they're better than anybody because they got a pocket full of money or a bank account. That's nothing. You know, that's a one-way ticket to hell.
Yes, very well said. My sister and her husband, I know that they would continue to put in their 2 cents on the issue of these homeless camps. Completely against them is the message. And that's because they've never worked. Concentration camps, just they have a bad history of outcomes, when you just say, stand by in society while, just those people with that label, just throw them in the fenced, area. And, if there's a little hovel in there for them or a sack of something to munch on for some victuals, so be it, but just get them out of here. Or you don't want to do that, but you're too afraid to do something. So you stand by, and then you see the economy is offering jobs to, turn on the showers or light the ovens and stuff like that. That's what happened in Germany. These people, they wound up just getting paid. They were just jobs. People that didn't want to make any waves. That's how it all got done. And that's how that's how it is here. People here, they're what we're trying to discourage is indolence, spiritual indolence. Stand up for something, and you know what that is deep down. I don't have to speak on this. Everybody is fashioned, I believe, by our Creator. Okay, and He's left nobody out of this that's human. You're made in a divine image, and you come with all your unassailables, I call them. And that is the highest religion there is. I'll start there. That's one of my favorite unassailable. Each of you have the highest religion there is. I've been studying Jesus-owning gospel. It's called the personal religious experience. And it has a definition that I've given it. They don't formally have a glossary or anything, but it's not the personal religious experience if it's not always ever evolving. So since life is eternal, because that's the only thing, the guy making it rain with lives out in the grand universe, our Father, he knows about. He doesn't know about the other stuff. So he's the eternal guy that's always ever been, that doesn't even have a fashioner. He doesn't have a creator. And he's okay with it. He's comfortable with it. He's ill. He's this guy, I mean, I can't even tell you. Right. But you all know I can't tell you anything you don't innately already know, or know is because that's all part of your unassailable. That just comes with what you are, who you are. And yeah, you know, I don't want to preach. I don't foist, you know, because, you know, I would never suggest to anybody to convert to try to hand them something. I want them to know that they already have it, you see? Anyways, let's go back to Heidi.
Yeah, I agree. However, I think that everybody here on Earth and in this square and anybody watching needs to understand that the choices they make and the way they react to this protest is on them. There is nothing wrong with standing up for your child who is abused and corruption, you know, oversaw anything that would have negated the lifelong injuries, injuries that this little girl suffered. And anybody who tries to get mean or judgmental of how the parents are reacting, shame on you. How can you actually live with yourself or justify judging somebody for dealing with a great deal of PTSD and unresolved issues with this? I mean, if, you know, we all go meet our maker, and any officer or government official that's had to deal with this, you have to meet your maker, and the way you react to this is a personal choice, and you will get personal consequences when you meet your higher power. And you may not believe in a higher power, but what if? And if you're judging them for this, what if you're wrong? You know, I would be thinking that way, because I'll tell you what, they are out here consistently for 2.5 years, and I've been out here for one day. It's not fun. It's hot. It's not something you're going to do for fun. It's because they have a drive, because there's something wrong with society, and they are here to try to help that.
And I'll say something here. I'll remind everybody the reason why they fought this thing most of the 16, well, all of the 16 years that this has been whitewashed, locally to nationally, 16 years worth of administrations, locally to nationally, have whitewashed this. It's gone all the way to the Supreme Court of Appeals. The reason why they started 2.5 years to do this publicly is because the media is bought and paid for. What media? It's not media. We don't have media anymore. We have propaganda. We have approved stories. And this doesn't make news.
The media is a medium for an agenda of the powers to be, and that's all. Nothing else gets said other than something that's going to fuel their fear-driven society ideal.
Exactly, because I've seen, even within, I'd say, the last month or two, they've had someone from Street Roots come down and pass the mic to him, gave him airtime at the rally to speak about some things. And that's one outlet that we would have thought by now they would have put something out about this. And I saw him made public promise. It's on the Facebook Justice for Qadira site somewhere, one of the videos recently. But so far, nothing that I know of. So that I don't know how do you guys feel about that? I don't know how you feel about your propaganda machine. But I mean, here's two distressed parents that a politician's relative burned up and abused their child, and doctors at the hospital that night threw her out to die.
Now,
tried to kill her.
This happened in 2008.
This happened in 2007.
I wonder what kind of measures were in place at hospitals for children then. I think
that was the same year, 2007, that Carly's Law went into effect, which they completely crapped all over that little girl's grave because she was beaten to death by her mother's boyfriend, and her mother's boyfriend worked really hard to get that law. There was already child abuse laws on the books, but she fought to get those more comprehensive, more set in stone of what are the protocols, what you got to jump into action and do. And these people at the hospital, they were to immediately call the police.
CSD.
And
caseworker,
yeah, all of that would have happened at the hospital.
Mandatory.
My niece's parents were in shock, just dealing with these people and trying to get her out of their basement, not knowing how long she'd been burned up and kidnapped down there.
These are young parents at the time,
and that's why mandatory reporters are supposed to do their job. None of them did their job from the night of the burn at the hospital. I mean, we look at these big facilities and these hospitals, and we think that people working there are trustworthy, and so you listen to them and you do what they say. But I don't advise it after what I've found. I get nervous anytime any of my family members go to the hospital now, because there's some godforsaken stuff that goes on in those things. And we believe that my niece triggered this system that they used, these people and personnel they have up there to make the child trafficking business that's so proliferate here, erase its little under the cover stuff, that when some child winds up, in some condition and there's some, high level person behind it,
Well, you got to think about this. If this is the ground zero for human trafficking in the United States, and it is, bar none, you don't hear it in the media, of course, because that's not part of their agenda. But this is ground zero, so it's a multi-billion-dollar business. That means there's a lot of people that are being moved through here. And there's got to be a lot of people involved. A lot of sick, Satan-loving people involved. I mean, come on. You don't get into that industry if you are not a bad person. And it's obviously a syndicate of very high officials in this area and in the United States. And you got to look around. I mean, who is it? Is it our neighbors? Is it our governor? I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying these are the kind of official positions they hold. And then they've got control of the media. Nothing gets said. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. There's got to be a lot of people involved, and it's got to go all the way to the top, above the top that we know of. I mean, it's sick, and people just don't even think about it. I mean, people let their little girls walk around this city. It's crazy.
So, yeah, I mean, the corruption is rampant, and the way things have been going in Oregon and the personal experience our family has now with this establishment just just makes me question and wonder, but not really. It just makes me realize that probably this state is a safe haven, for the type.
Well, it's ground zero.
And yeah, okay. So I'm just laughing because she's going to co-opt the ground zero. I say that about our planet, and so, but in a good way. I call it ground zero because the creator of the universe came here as one of us, a human being, which is a bottom runger. We are the lowest type of intelligent life that has been sunshipped, that is literally familied in to the universal Father's family. The Paradise Father, he who inhabits eternity on Paradise Isle. And so these creator sons only get one bestowal as a human, and it's the last one they do out of 7, where they're increasingly lower and lower, starting from the top type of creature they create out here from a non-evolutionary, perfect and eternal, but time-space coordinate birthplace, Melchizedek's son, all the way down through some levels, and finally the last 3 are different stages of ascending mortals of time and space. Planetary mortals, evolutionary mortals of time and space on the evolutionary spheres, the astronomic kind like this, we're animal origin. He reaches in deep to family in. He really does. It's stupefying. I sometimes think he's lost his mortal mind, but he wouldn't have one of those. But he came here. This is where he chose, and he knew it was isolated and quarantined because of the Lucifer rebellion. But he was using his bestowals when he had rebellions. Lucifer's was the third in this universe to clean up some of the mess along the way, and he did a good job. But this one broke the mold, and everybody's going, dude, you can't get in there, man. You got to at least, we can't say that because he's got the authority. It's the one thing he gets to choose about the bestowal, where it is, and they're like, well, you do have to wait until there's a peoples that can understand God as their father. And the Hebrews did that for us, the Jews rather, they were being called by that time, did that for us. Thank you, Jews. Because we had the peoples that were fit enough, spiritually fit enough to get this guy in here and let him teach something to us, which was who the Father is. He reveals the Father. Yeah, go ahead.
So sorry for all the details, and I just want to introduce myself. My name is Caden, and I'm the son of Renee and Corellin Stevens, and I've been wearing this shirt that they made 15 or so years ago, basically my whole life. And when they protest down here, you see Justice for Qadira, and you might think it's something, political. You might think that it's something that's involved with, rooting out corruption or whatnot. But generally, it's a very simple idea behind it that people matter. You matter, and what happens to you matters. If somebody hurts you, that matters. But growing up in this world, I've seen all around me, we've got people out here who do not think that they matter. They are raised to believe they don't matter, that they are wrong, that they do not belong in the world around them. But ask yourself this. Imagine, based on that idea that people don't belong because it's all around us, imagine if this square right now was empty and it was just you in downtown Portland and there were no people around you. There were no people around you. Imagine if we judged everyone so harshly, if we looked at people so critically that we rejected them and there was nobody around. You would be alone. You would be alone. You might have money, you might have your phone, you might have games, you might have movies, you might have books. You can keep yourself entertained for years with no people around you. But you'd get bored because there would be no people. And in this world today, what do we have if we don't have each other? You know, when we're looking at caring for people on this planet, it means to do what is right for them, even though you may be receiving nothing in return. It means to care about them, even though you may not be getting any of that reciprocated. But today, you're told you are raised in a world of rules, no empathy, morals, codes of conduct. But where are our morals? Where do they come from? Rules, right and wrong? What is told in Scripture, what is told in the Bible, what you should do and should not do? Morals come from empathy. And if your morals are unempathetic to the situation of anybody you are judging, then they're not morals, they're rules. And at that point, rules were made to be broken. So if you live by rules, you are going to end up dividing the people around you. Even in this protest today, I hear words, shame on you, be ashamed. If you do not do this, if you do not support this, you should be ashamed. There is no reason to be ashamed because it makes sense. It makes sense that you would not care about other people when you are raised in a world where many do not care about you because they are raised in a world where people do not care about them. It's unfortunate, but it's true. And we've had it going for a long time now. My generation, Generation Z, has the highest rates of suicide, has the highest rates of self-harm. We have 10-year-olds killing themselves. Ask yourself, why? We have people on the streets addicted to fentanyl. We have people on the streets homeless. They have no jobs. They have no purpose in society because they are not given value. Ask yourself, why? If you would take a moment to look in the mirror and think about the times in your life, maybe where you could have helped somebody, where you could have been nice to somebody, where you could have listened to somebody, when you could have been there for somebody, think about why you didn't. Because it was wrong? Because it was inconvenient at the time? But then think about when people are not there for you. You'd wonder, why did they not do it? Why did they not help you? Because it was inconvenient? When is it ever inconvenient to help other people? You know, when I'm on the streets and I'm walking down the street with a friend and I see somebody who's asking for money and I pull out a few dollars or a $20 bill to hand them, sometimes I hear, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you help somebody? And that baffles me to some extent. What is wrong with it? If there's nothing wrong with walking right past them on the street, if there's nothing wrong with insulting them, if there's nothing wrong with hurting somebody, what's wrong with helping somebody? And don't tell me that hurting people is wrong, because if it were, then we would not be doing it. But we do it anyway. So clearly, there ain't no right or wrong. But what you choose to do is what you choose to do. And you could do anything. You could come up here right now and speak on this microphone and try and attempt to hold government officials accountable. You could attempt to hold the police accountable. You could attempt to hold the President of the United States accountable. You could hold Russians fighting the war in Ukraine accountable. You could. But you won't. You won't. That's the only reason it won't happen. Because you have reasons you won't do it. But wonder about those reasons. And I'm not saying that there's any particular good or bad side in all of this. We're all humans down here, and we all matter. And what happened to my sister is an example of what happens when people are raised to believe that they do not matter, that you do not matter, that I do not matter, that it is not worth listening to another individual. But I'll say it again. If you don't do that, you won't have anybody. And when you are alone, and I know everyone in this square at some point has been alone. How did that feel to be alone with nobody else to talk to, nobody to listen to you, nobody to hear what you were concerned about? How did that feel? To be walked right over, ignored, like you didn't even exist. Pretty dehumanizing, right? So think to yourself, every time you walk past somebody who's on the street holding a sign saying they need money or they even just need a hug, and you walk right past them, remember how that felt to be ignored. What we have in this society is an increasingly disconnected people. You got phones, you got the internet, you got cigarettes, you got drugs, you got fentanyl, and you can use all of that. But you also got the people right next to you. You got the people right across the street. And those connections will be the most valuable things you ever have. So make sure to treat the people you have like they matter. Because at the end of the day, when you die, you are going to be thinking about the people you met and what they meant to you. You are not going to be thinking about the latest TikTok you watched. You will not be thinking about the best drugs you did or how nice that made you feel. You will be thinking about your mom. You will be thinking about your dad. You will be thinking about your cousin, your brother, your best friend from elementary school. You will be thinking about your high school buddies. You will be thinking about everybody who was not there with you when you died. Because on this planet, it's about the people. It's not about money. It's not about what cars you own, what grades you got, what degrees you hold. It's about making sure you are taking care of people. So when they talk about people in the government not doing their job or their responsibilities, it makes sense. It makes sense. It really does. Because in the government, that's not the goal. In many systems we have, the goal is to not take care of people. There are ulterior motives. There are motives like how many advertisements, how much can we sell, how many shows can we hold, how many people can we imprison, ultimately how much money can we make, and how many people will we trample in achieving those goals. Even now, we still purposely hurt people, even if it has nothing to do with money. We might do it in some righteous fury. We might look at people and say, oh, what you did is wrong. What you did is right. And that's how we aren't peaceful sometimes. That's how other protests in the city have turned into riots, and it's turned destructive, and things have burned down, and people have lost more than they gained, and they made more enemies than friends. Because for some reason, we come to believe the other side is not something we can understand. But if you can empathize with them, if you would empathize with them, you would understand them. It takes some effort, but it can be done. I wonder how many of you in this square are walking around with some sense of regret in your life about something you did to somebody. Would you like a word?
Man, jeez, that was terrific. I don't know if I can up that. That's crazy. Anyways, I haven't had this much fun since the Alamo. That's a good one. I'm just doom and gloom here. Just got some facts. So the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation recently did a study So the study was on those who have fallen in mass shootings since 1970. I think the number was right around 1,263 people lost their lives in mass shootings since 1970. And the other part of their study or research was how many people have died while interacting with police since 1980, 10 years less. And that number was about 31,000. So that's a huge difference between people dying from mass shootings. All of them added up together since 1970 is nowhere near. The police in this country murder, kill at least 1,130 United States citizens every single year since 1980. That's a little known fact, and
that's very disappointing. That does point to an establishment feature. Even the population being distressed and not taking themselves out, but going and shooting people down is what, 1/30th fraction of what the people that are supposed to protect and serve, and protect is the first word of that, not rub people out. So that's very interesting.
Also, back to that human trafficking thing. Yes, everybody knows that the I-5 corridor is, and if you didn't know, that's the number one place for human trafficking. And here we are. I-5 is just right back there somewhere. So they have a new way to for people to the police stations and everybody to record and keep a record of what's going on. In this state, we only put down in 2019 28 incidences of human trafficking in the entire state.
Well, that's 28 too many, but
28.
Is that justified billion-dollar industry?
28 is, I don't know, that seems a little low for being ground zero. So there's a lot of stuff that's not being reported by your officials.
Right. Well, I'm
I'm
going to say something before we go too far with the doom and gloom.
yeah. If anybody wants to play me a game of chess, I'm the 1983 Oregon Regional Chess Champion of.
I just kicked his ass last night. Come on, tell him, dude.
I lose sometimes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm Lloyd. That's all you get.
It's my older brother. I just wanted to jump in there with something my nephew Caden said. And, I hope Heidi didn't take it too hard. He jumped on the shaming. Now, I will say this.
Shame on you.
Shaming. I've heard my sister Corellin say it at rallies before, too. That women who have been abused, and she's been perpetually abused for 16 years since this happened, they just continue to distress her instead of help her. Tend to be inflamed, when they get to talking about issues of abuse to women and female women and female children. And so, she's tough. She can take it. I will say this on behalf of the mandatory curriculum states very specifically that shaming is prohibited. So, we just ask for forgiveness, and God forgives, okay? So That's how to handle that, because God has bottomless pockets, okay? And he expects you to get in on the forgiving too. Forgiveness is really the only lawful thing to merchandise in since 20 centuries ago. What the central figure did was give us an update memo. Well, first he revealed the Father, and then the update memos have been following ever since. But he expects you, if you read your mandatory curriculum, the Course in Miracles, it's him speaking for himself, dropped less than a century ago. And it states the mandatory curriculum.
And louder.
And it states very clearly that you need to get involved with the forgiving. Him and God don't do it all, turns out. If you don't forgive your brother, you're withdrawing your own free salvation and redemption. So I'm not the notifier or the messenger, but I'm just seconding the motion because I always want to lift it up. He paid a fair price to get his ministry out to us, and I'll take it. So, but save your brother is the new command.
Sure.
So we shouldn't try to bother him until we get that done.
All right.
So my parents have a motto they say at the end of every rally, and it's very simple. We're going to say it 3 times so you can follow along if you like. All right.
It's not mandatory.
It is not mandatory. It is your choice. All right. So
about choices.
it starts like this. It goes, you are the value. I am the value. We are the value. Let's well, say it one more time. Say it with me now. You are the value. We are the value. I am the value.
You are the value. I am the value. We are the value.
We're not talking about money. We're not talking about gold. We're talking about human lives. That's what matters.
That's right. Human lives.
So keep that in mind.
We love, well, you. And, what? Oh, yeah.
Say it to the camera.
Oh, that thing. Yeah, we're going to be back next week.
You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? We'll be back every week until they can come back.
Yeah. We'll get worse or better. I don't know. It all depends.
Get on the camera.
Oh, yeah. That's it. That's all I got. Man, it's hot like Grenada.
Well, thank you, and forgive us if we disturbed any of you, but we'll be back next week, and we love you. The Father loves you, and love is all there is. All right, bye.